There are some places that just get under your skin. Cuba is one of them. It's an island that feels locked in time, but if you look closer, it's always moving. When you hear the name, what comes to mind? Revolution, right? Cigars, those incredible vintage cars rolling past these faded, grand buildings. But that's just the postcard. Behind it all, there is this incredible story of survival, of defiance, and of deep, deep contradiction. To really get a handle on Cuba, we have to understand the powerful forces that have been pushing and pulling on it for centuries. To understand modern Cuba, you have to start right here with this memo. It's from a US diplomat back in 1960, and it is chillingly direct. This wasn't just an idea somebody floated. This became the actual blueprint for a policy of economic pressure that has squeezed this island for more than 60 years. And the goal was right there in black and white: create hardship, create desperation, and hope the whole system collapses from within. And that really brings us to the core question we're exploring here. When you're facing that kind of overwhelming external force, on top of all your own internal challenges, how do you not only survive, but somehow manage to build this unique, powerful identity that the whole world is fascinated by? To find the answer, we've got to dive into the contradictions, because they're woven right into the fabric of the island itself. I mean, just look at where Cuba is on a map. It's literally at a crossroads. You've got the Caribbean Sea, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Atlantic Ocean all converging right there. For centuries, this prime location made it a prize for empires and a melting pot for cultures. It was destined to be a place that mattered, a place of huge strategic and cultural weight. And that history? Well, it's been anything but calm. Cuba's identity wasn't just gently shaped by the sun and the sea. No, it was forged in the fire of colonialism, in brutal rebellion, and in the unbelievable wealth that came from one thing: sugar. Okay, so let's do a quick flyby of the history that leads us to the Cuba we know today. It all kicks off in 1492 with the arrival of the Spanish. Fast forward a few centuries to 1868, that's the first major push for independence. Then, in 1902, Cuba technically becomes a republic, but here's the catch: the US has oversight because of something called the Platt Amendment. That tension just simmers and simmers until, boom, 1959. Everything changes when Fidel Castro's revolution succeeds. So who exactly was Castro rebelling against? This guy, Fulgencio Batista. He was a military man who was the dominant force in Cuban politics for a quarter of a century, eventually seizing power in a coup in 1952. His regime, which had US support, threw out the Constitution, crushed civil liberties, and oversaw an economy where the gap between the super-rich and the desperately poor just grew wider and wider. He basically created the perfect storm for a revolution. And the revolution that followed, well, it's a story with two completely different faces. It's a story of some truly incredible social progress that was achieved at the very steep price of basic fundamental freedoms. Now, this right here is the absolute core of the Cuban paradox. On one side, look at the achievements. The revolutionary government built a universal healthcare system from the ground up. They achieved a literacy rate of 99.8%. That's staggering. And they dramatically cut infant mortality. These are things admired all over the world. But the other side of the coin is the political reality. A one-party state where there's no room for opposition and the media is completely controlled by the government. And make no mistake, this isn't just some unspoken rule. It is written directly into the Cuban Constitution. The document itself spells out that the Communist Party is the supreme leading political force in the country. It legally cements the one-party system. So that centralized control naturally extends to the economy, which has been this constant, decades-long story of state planning versus foreign sanctions and, honestly, the incredible ingenuity of the Cuban people just to make things work day to day. You see, for decades, the Soviet Union had been Cuba's economic lifeline. But when the USSR collapsed in 1991, that lifeline was just cut instantly. Billions of dollars in support vanished overnight. The result was an absolutely catastrophic economic crisis they called the Special Period. We're talking extreme shortages of food, of fuel. It tested the entire nation to its absolute limit. And that feeling of economic struggle, of living on the edge, it never really went away. Decades of sanctions, problems with the state-run economy, and recent global crises have made things even harder. And this one number, from a 2023 study, it just paints a brutal picture of the reality today. An estimated 88% of the population is living in extreme poverty. So how does the country even keep its head above water? Well, it's this kind of wild, complex mix.
You've got the classic state-run industries and exports like nickel and tobacco. Tourism is absolutely critical, bringing in much-needed foreign cash. But two other things are just as important. Remittances, that's money sent home from Cubans living overseas, and the government's program of sending skilled workers abroad, especially their world-class doctors and nurses, whose work brings vital income back to the state.
But here's the thing. Despite all of that hardship, there is this cultural energy, this spirit that just seems completely unconquerable. And you could argue it's the nation's most powerful, most influential export of all. So where does this incredible culture come from? Well, you have to look at the people. The roots are this deep, complex mix of European, African, and indigenous heritage. It's a society that has been shaped by centuries of migration, some of it forced, some of it voluntary, and all of that created this completely unique cultural blend you just don't find anywhere else. And the result is, wow, for an island of its size, the cultural footprint is just massive. Think about the music that came from here: son, mambo, salsa. These are global sounds. The Cuban National Ballet is famous all over the world. And in sports, their dominance in amateur boxing and baseball is the stuff of legend. This cultural power gives Cuba an influence on the world stage that goes way beyond its economy or its politics. So, you take all of that, the history, the revolution, the economic struggles, that incredible culture, and it all funnels down to this very moment. Today, Cuba is standing at a profound crossroads, trying to navigate what might be the most pivotal time since the revolution itself. And here's why this moment is so critical. For the first time since 1959, there is no one with the last name Castro running the country. Fidel's brother Raul stepped aside, and the presidency passed to Miguel Diaz-Canel, a man who was born after the revolution. This is a monumental generational shift. And this new era is already full of tension. In 2019, a new constitution actually recognized private property, a massive change, but it also doubled down on the Communist Party's absolute power. Then, in July 2021, all that pent-up frustration just exploded into the biggest street protests the island had seen in decades. And on top of all of that, a devastating economic crisis is fueling the largest wave of people leaving the island in its entire history. So, here we are, right back where we started. Cuba is still an island of paradoxes. It's caught between the massive weight of its revolutionary legacy and this urgent, desperate need for change. Caught between its history of isolation and the pressures of our hyper-connected world. The history books have been written, but the next chapter for this fascinating, complicated, and captivating nation, well, that remains a profound and very open question.